I took a piece of 1x8 and milled it down to a 1/2 inch thick, and I'm ripping it to 6 3/8 wide. I'll then take a 2x4 and cut it at 16 inches long. I'll take it to the joiner and clean up one edge to get rid of the roundovers. I'll then take it to my table saw and rip the other roundovers off of the other side and rip it directly in half. Once I get it ripped in half, I'll take it back to the miter box and cut these directly in half. Now I'll get my blade switched out for a dado stack at a 1/2 inch wide for the kerf. I'll then take and rip a 1/2 inch kerf on 2 sides of each piece. Now, back over at the miter box, we'll put a 45-degree miter on all 4 pieces at one side. Okay, I cut those 45s on my pieces here, and these notches are at a depth of 5/16 each. So, I got to make up for that notch times 2, and I'm going to fit this 1/2 inch stock that I ripped down in between each. My stock that I ripped down is at a width of 6 3/8, so I'm going to cut 4 pieces out of this at 7 inches. Now I'm going to make some shallow notches on 2 of these pieces at 1 inch. So there'll be 6 shallow notches going down this piece and this piece on one side. Now what I want to do is from the bottom of both of these pieces, I'm going to pull up 1.5 inches on both sides here, and from those 1.5 inch marks I'm going to bring my square over to that mark down here and scribe up from that 1.5 inch mark at a 45 on both sides. And I'm going to cut these off. Next, what we're going to do is mark center of the remaining 2 pieces, and from that center mark we'll go 3 inches by 3 inches, 1.5 inches from the center mark, both from side to side and top to bottom. We'll cut out that square with the jigsaw. We're going to cut our remaining piece from our 1/2 inch stock at 7 inches as well. We'll mark center and take a roll of tape and scribe the perimeter of the roll of tape on our piece. Then we'll rip it directly in half at the table saw. We'll take the pieces over to the bandsaw and get these circles cut out. Get yourself some 1-inch brad nails, and if you haven't figured out what I'm making yet, you'll figure it out very shortly. Get yourself some thin CA glue. This helps the process a lot. Now take and line up your miters to where they're matching, just like this in the video. Papa Brad in his ass. Repeat the process for the other side. Now take the circles that we cut out and slide them up from the bottom to where they butt that grooved piece that we ripped. Now, if you haven't figured out what I'm building yet, I don't know what to tell you. We're just going to use some CA glue on the sides of this bird feeder slash bird house. I'll then take and rip some 1/4 inch strips that are 1 inch tall. I'll then take a piece of plywood and rip it 9 3/4 by 9 3/4, and this is 1/2 inch plywood. I'll need 2 pieces of plywood 10 1/2 by 7 1/4 square to long, 2 times. I'll then lay out 1 inch marks and cut that same short, shallow groove like I did in the gables of this piece. Now let's take that 9 3/4 by 9 3/4 plywood and those 1/4 inch strips we ripped and build the base for this bird feeder slash bird house, whatever you want to call it. We're not going to do any fancy miters on the base. We'll just make some marks, cut it, and square butt it, and pop a brad in his ass. Once we're done with the base, we'll set the frame inside, CA glue it to the bottom, flip it over, and pop some more brads in his ass. For the roof, we'll put both pieces up so we can adjust the miter at the top to be nice and tight. We'll add some CA glue for extra support and pop some brads in it. Make sure your brads are angled correctly so they don't come out the other side. Now I'm going to take and rip some 1/4 inch strips by 1 inch again for the decorative pieces around the gable and the frame of this bird feeder slash bird house. I'll cut 45 miters so they line up perfect with the gable, and then I'll fill in the bottom of the gable with a square piece but cut some miters right at the top of the corners. That way it gives it a nice look. These measurements will vary, so just take it and mark it as you go. Now for the windows, we'll do the same method. We'll just take them and mark them out how we like it. Glue it together because these are thinner strips. You don't want to nail these pieces because they'll go through the other side, unless you have really short nails. We'll rip some cypress by 1/4 inch and use this to cap off the roof. Make sure you repeat the process for both the front and back and the sides, and this piece will come to life.